G'day everybody, my name's Kai from Elixir Mods and welcome back to another video on modding Eco 101. In this video today we're going to be doing recipes. We're going to add a recipe to the coffee cup that we did in the last video. So if you're following along in this series, basically by the end of it we're going to create our own little cafe mod. And when this is all finished and done, the cafe mod will be available on all the like the forums and stuff for people to download and test out. So this will all be like open source code and everything like that because we're all doing it together. But we're going to be adding in our recipe. But first, a quick message from our sponsor. And today's sponsor is PingPerfect. PingPerfect offers premium game server hosting and 24/7 support. They have full DDoS protection and have a massive range of servers that you can choose from. In this particular case, they support Eco, and they support Eco quite well. They have a huge list of servers. They even offer a 48-hour trial. So if you're interested, you can click the request a 48-hour try button, and they'll give you 48 hours free of charge to test out their services. And then any time after that, you got to pay for. They're pretty transparent with all of their pricings and their details. Recommended at the moment is 4 gigs of RAM at least for an Eco server. You can choose to have the server branded, and I would recommend having the server hosted on an NVMe. Then you just got to tell them what name you would like the server to start with, and enter in the Archon password, which is not really needed. Not for Eco anyway. That's more for other game servers. And then after you click continue to go to your checkout, if you enter in Elixir Mods, you'll get a 10% one-off time discount. This can be used on any previous and existing services and any new services. They also have a very intuitive game panel where you can select through the mods file manager, the mod manager, your configuration files, and more. And as you can see in their mod manager, Elixir Mods mod packs are already there for you to click install, and it'll install them for you. Other things such as your web console, your automatic updates, automatic manual updates through Steam, or even beta. You can also do scheduled tasks or actions to repair your server or reinstall it if you're having issues, and they also support automatic restarting. So you can set it up in schedule restarts and you just click new. Then you've got the full configuration of giving it a name, when you want it set to daily, weekly, and you can set the time and add notes. So to start with, we're going to be adding in a new public partial class, and we're going to call this the coffee cup recipe, and we're going to define this as a recipe family. So the old system used to be recipe, but we want recipe family. The recipe is used in something else that we're going to cover in another video. But just for this video, we're just going to be using recipe family, and we're going to build our recipe to craft our coffee cup. So the next thing we need to do is we're going to go public coffee cup recipe, bleh, and then we're going to start with our recipe. So we're going to go this dot recipes equals new list recipe. So the IntelliSense, as I explained in the first video, is going to help us get a lot of this done nice and quickly and very easily. As I said in the previous video too, if I'm going too quickly, please just let me know. Or if you still have questions, post them in the comment section below, and I will try and answer them the best as I can. Or I'll try and include the explanation in the next video. So next thing we're going to initialize a new recipe, and now we're going to get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add in our first string, which is just going to say coffee cup, and then we're going to add in a localizer dot do string as well, so a localized string, and we're also going to put in coffee cup here as well. So the reason why we use these two at the very start is because these are used in like your tooltips and stuff like that, when looking at the coffee cup recipe and things like that. And then when you're also doing like mod translations, these will also should translate them in the tooltips as well. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to initialize a new ingredient element array. That's what these square brackets are for, is for our array type. And now we're going to do new ingredient element, open, close. And now we're going to do, there's a few different ways we can actually implement a new ingredient element. There is specific items, and then there is also using tags, like item tags, so like the wood tag and things like that. And I'll show you how to do both of them, but we're just going to be using one. So we're going to go type of paper item, and this is just for the singular item. We're going to do like a type of and then the item. But as you can see here, it's got an error. So the type of namespace paper item could not be found, and that's because our namespace that we're using, or all of our usings here, don't actually have any references to the paper item. So we just need to add one new using, and we're going to do eco.mods.techtree, and that actually contains all the information for all the items that eco implements. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to say how many paper will be needed to actually craft our coffee cup. So we're going to just put in 5. So now usually if we leave this like this, this would become a static recipe, which means like the ingredients will never change, they'll always be the same. But then we can add modifiers for the type of, let's say the paper milling skill, because we're using paper to actually make it. So we'll just give it a bonus to a paper milling for a new thing to make. Then we can add in a talent modifier as well. And for the talent modifier here, we'll probably use the paper milling lavish resource talent. So this just means like the lavish resource talent increases the room tier requirement for the table, but reduces the overall cost by a certain amount for the recipes and stuff to craft. But we're not going to use that talent. We're just going to use the skill. We're going to make that so this skill requires this recipe requires a skill to actually be made. So we're going to go add a new attribute called require skill, and now we're going to define the skill that needs to be used to do this recipe. So we're going to define a paper milling skill. We're just going to say that they only need to be level 1. Going to be level 1 to make this paper milling, like paper milling 1 to make this recipe. So this means that they'll have to have read the skill scroll and then spec into the paper milling skill to be able to actually create the coffee cups. So to use tags in your ingredient element, we just go new ingredient element, and instead of writing type of, we're just going to put in double quotes. Excuse me. And then in the double quotes, we can add in the tag. So let's say we wanted to use wood for whatever reason. So the wood tag covers anything in the wood section, like your birch wood, your cedar, your redwood, all that stuff. So and we just say we want the wood and how many wood we want. So you can also, that's how you can use tags in your recipe, and then you can also apply your modifiers as well. But we're not going to do that. We're just going to stick with the just the paper at the moment, and then we're going to progress on. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add in a new crafting element, and we're going to tell it what item the actual is getting made. So our item that's actually getting made is our coffee cup item. Now, with these two brackets just here, this is how we can define how many of these items should be given. So if we want to give 1 coffee cup for this recipe, then we don't even actually need to type anything in there. We can just leave that blank and it'll automatically default to 1. But if you want to give more, we just put in how many in whole numbers. So if you want to give 10, you just put in 10, but we're just going to do 5. And that's it for all of our ingredients and what comes out. We can have multiple outputs as well, so we can do a new crafting element, and let's just say we're going to give back some plant fibers. And so this recipe would now give out plant fibers and coffee cup. This is completely up to you and whatever your recipe is that you're making. But yes, you can definitely give more outputs, and just adding a new ingredient as well is as simple as adding a comma at the end of this one, and then adding in a new ingredient element and putting all your values in there. But we're just going to use the paper for the moment. We're not going to add anything else extra to this. And that's actually all we need to do for that recipe. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go this dot experience on craft equals, and we're going to give it a direct int value. So this is a very tricky one. So this is the experience on craft is affected by the multiplier. So this acts as a second multiplier as well, depending on how it's set up. So if we do 1 experience on craft, so this will always give the default experience amount, which is preset by the game, which I believe is around about 80 experience points itself. No, it's actually 1. It's 1 experience point. And then that 1 experience point is affected by your food and housing skill total multiplier as well. So if we have this set to 1 and you have 80 house and food points, this will become 80. So if we set that to 2, that would be like times 2, so that would be 160 experience on craft instead of 80. So we're just going to set this to 1, so they just get the amount based on their housing multiplier. You can change this later on, that is up to you. Depending on how many items are also being made in the mod, you might change this so they just have to create less amounts to help level up their skills and stuff. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add this dot labor in calories, and we're going to go create labor in calories value, and we're going to just say now how much calories is going to be required to actually do this crafting recipe. So we're just going to use a casual default of 250 as a really good balanced out for starting ones. You can do more, but we're just going to start this with 250. And then the next thing we're going to do is we can define it to use the actual skill itself, make sure that that's what's required to actually do this recipe. So we can do paper milling skill, which means that they have to be the paper miller to actually be able to put the labor into this recipe. Otherwise, normally it'd be anybody else would be able to do it. You just need the paper miller to queue it up. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is going to do this dot craft time, craft minutes equals create craft time value. And create craft time value is usually time in minutes. So if we were to set this to 1, it would take 1 minute to make this, and there'd be no like modifications, no modifiers or anything like that. It will always be 1 minute to create this item with this recipe. But we can go ahead and we can actually go so type of our coffee cup recipe, and then we can go ahead and we can say type of skill modifier, so it'll be the paper milling skill. And then we can also add in the parameters of the talents. So we can also have it also affected by the talents. So we can do type of paper milling parallel speed talent. And we can also add a second talent just by doing the comma and then going type of paper milling focused speed talent. So this talent here, the parallel speed talent, just means that if you have two of the same table in the same room, that they will operate quicker, or if you have the single one in there, it'll also operate quicker. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to have to initialize our recipe. So this dot initialize, and we're going to do localizer dot do string, And we're just going to put in our coffee cup again. And we're going to do type of our recipe. And there we go, our recipe is now initialized, and it will label it as coffee cup in the crafting table. So I believe this is slightly different to this one when it's displayed. So I'm pretty sure when it's referring to like the recipes and stuff, it'll use this initialized actual name. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go crafting component dot add recipe, and now we get to define where our recipe is being put. So we're going to go type of, and we're going to add in the workbench where it's going to be actually made. So we can make this in the anywhere that like the paper stuff has like to do with. Like you can do it in the tailoring table. So we can do the tailoring table. Now when we're adding our specific table that we want it to be crafted at, we have to use the object, not the item. So if you use the item, it actually won't work and it won't show up. We need to actually add it to the object itself, because the object itself is what initializes the crafting component itself, not the item. So anything else we'd be using item, but when we're adding our crafting, like adding our recipe to a crafting component, we need to reference the object. And so the next thing we're going to do, last thing we're going to do is just going to say this. So this just refers to this as a whole. That's our recipe done. We don't actually have to do anything else. That's it, and we can just put this straight into the game and that'll work. So that's the next thing that we're going to test in this video. So that'll be the next part of this video. We're going to grab our folder here, and we're just going to update our file that we had in our mod folder. Not skip, we want to replace. And now we're going to go into eco. So let's restart the world, and then we'll come back after this is all done and ready to go. Alright, and we are back. The server is all booted up, and we have our coffee cup still. As you can see there, there's the coffee cup that we made, and as you can see there, there's now our new coffee cup recipe. And as you can see, the experience we're going to get from this is 80 paper milling experience, because we have 80 food points in total, so our multiplier is by 80. So that's why we set that to 1 in our recipe. So now we'll get the 1 experience times your food and housing point value modifier. So let's go ahead and let's give ourselves the tailoring table. We're just going to put this down. We're not going to make a room or anything for it, and then we're just going to have a look in here and see if our coffee cup's been added. And there it is. There is our coffee cup with its icon, and as you can see in here, it actually has the green background that we sent in the first video. And there's the name for the coffee cup, and this is our crafting cost. So as you can see, there's our labor, and the higher your skill level, the less it's going to cost in calories. And then like the same with our resources, because we are higher end levels. And we can also add in like the basic upgrade. So if we go ahead and go give basic upgrade, let's go say 4, and we plug in our basic upgrade into our table. As you can see here, it is then once again affected by the modifier, decreased by 45%, and so is our craft time. So if we took the module out, our craft time would go back up, and because of our skills and everything like that, the craft time has been halved. If we weren't specialized in this specialty, it would be 1 minute, not 30 seconds, and this would be 5 instead of 2.5. And there we go, there is our recipe done, added into the game and added into the table, and is now craftable. And that is it for this video, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you got all the information out of it that you needed to create your own recipe. Um, and yeah, we'll see you in the next video.